So AEW is just struggling. Now you are a non-watcher now, correct? You do not watch Dynamite.
I do not. I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't. I don't watch it at all.
Okay.
Unless like, unless like, I guess now like we were talking like if I had to therapeutically sit still and not do anything and there was
Mm,
absolutely nothing else to do or
mm.
watch, I might turn it on just to see how ridiculous it is. Or but no, no.
Okay. Yeah.
Which in the early days I thought it was great. They did kind of run everything that they were doing in the ground. Um,
Mm,
Collision for that 2 month period was like appointment TV for me. I was
mm.
getting pay-per-views for a while, and they just it's awful. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's horrible.
Yeah. Again, it's with everything. It's creative and booking. Like it's basically everything comes back to that with AEW. Oh, we put on all these. I am a watcher of Thursday morning while I'm getting ready. Instead of watching the news, I will boop, boop, and flip through like Dynamite in probably 10 minutes. Like, well, let me see if I see something that I like, and then try to go through it before I hear people shit talking it on the internet because I at least want to see it first.
Mm.
And it's just been a really bad show for. It's been a while now. People will go back to when Punk was like when he got fired, but it was kind of a bad show when Punk was there too. It was just easier to get around because he was there. But now it just doesn't. It makes zero sense for the most part. They're big stars that they signed. Whatever. I think Osprey's pretty good too, but he's still. I, we grew
Well,
up in a
they had him
time.
tag team with Pockets this week.
Oh God. Oh God. God. When I think he's actually a good wrestler, but he's also maybe 195 pounds.
Yeah,
Maybe. Like,
yeah,
and I think our sensibilities for wrestling is obviously bigger dudes wrestling. It's not that you can't have smaller dudes have decent matches or whatever, but they're not your main eventers, or they couldn't, or they shouldn't be.
right.
But
Well, I mean, similar
uh,
to what I just said, like uh, the best AEW show is just going to be a show full of good matches because the angles are
mhm,
stupid. They're all the same or they're stupid. And that's where
yeah,
like yeah, it turns out I watched this for the adult soap opera. Didn't necessarily
mhm,
watch it for the action. And
correct.
everything outside of the ring and most of the stuff in the ring, particularly out, during a match outside the ring or immediately after a match, it's just stupid and ruins everything else that's going on.
Yeah, it's just there's no basis of storytelling. It's just excuses to have matches,
Yeah, and
and
they have buried Swerve. I know that's your
yeah.
bullet on here. They
Oh,
buried
you
him
see that bullet there?
in the much the same way they didn't do anything for Hangman when
Yeah,
he was champion. They do not know, like, we don't have baby faces, but the ones we do, we have no idea what to do with them. We just
yeah.
beat the shit out of them all the time.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, and again, like when MJF was, but it happened to him too. He was like
Yeah,
MJF was heel champion, but then people started to cheer for him as the heel, and then they made him a baby
yeah,
face ish heel, and then stuck him in a storyline that lasted for like almost a year that sucked, and then he got injured and he's out for
yeah,
potentially forever.
yeah.
But yes, Swerve becomes the first black heavyweight champion for AEW. That's great. Obviously piqued my interest. I'm like, oh, okay, I'd seen his matches before. Again, another dude that's 195 pounds also, but whatever. Like, it is what it is in that regard. You just have to deal with it, I guess. But like, then you just bury him, man. Like, he's
Hmm.
been buried for 3 weeks, and I
Hmm.
was just like, you know what? I'm good.
He
Like,
didn't even he wasn't even on the first Dynamite after he won the title. They had him on
yeah,
Collision.
yeah. It's just I don't understand. And then again, the stuff with the Jackson brothers or whatever, they suck. Again,
Horrible.
I'm not, even if I had never. Okay, let's rewind this if you've listened to us for a while. Okay, it's not like I don't like diminutive white tag teams in my history. Okay, so you can't come back and tell me that because I wrote it to the wall for rock and roll fantastics. Like,
Yeah.
okay, like that's not my that is my ministry. Okay, but these dudes suck. They can't talk. Their wrestling is just modern day wrestling style. If you're into that, that's fine. But none of their matches make any sense. It's just spots. It's just a spot fest
Yeah.
continually. They can't tell a story in a match. Like it's just they're bad.
They
And
and
then
the kicking out of everything is
yeah,
horrible.
and then to make them heels, which is going to come back here when we get to Halloween Havoc. But then to make them heels, but then essentially keep them the same characters doesn't make any sense. Like
Yeah.
just like then wrestle like heels. If you're
Yeah,
supposed to be
exactly.
these bad guys, wrestle like heels. Like
Right.
get legit, try to get legitimate heat. But we're not doing that. Everything's still a joke. We're a D-rate version of Degeneration X.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's just a worse version of that, which was say what you want about it. It did have freaking superstars in it, or at least one for sure, two for sure. Excuse me. And it made sense because they were over, and you could get away with being dicks.
Yeah.
Like these guys aren't over. They have 165 pounds, and it's just like it's so hard to take them as anything serious. And you're building essentially this entire pay per view around them and anarchy in the arena. And it's like I'm good, bro.
Yeah, you can't it's one thing to say we don't have baby faces and heels, but the matches don't make sense without it. So if you want to
Right,
manipulate the characters so it's ambiguous, okay, but somebody has to wrestle like a babyface and somebody has to wrestle like a
correct.
heel in a match. And it ideally it's going to be that way week to week so that it continues to make sense.
Yeah, yes, ideally. It's just I don't know, and again, and I was thinking about this morning. Where's the end game for this? So they win Anarchy in the arena as the heels. There's no more blow
Yeah.
offs. What are you going to blow
Yeah.
off to?
And that's the
Like,
point I didn't make when you're talking about like WWE being down. Like they're down because they just had their peak, and they gotta.
hmm
This is like going away and learning a new hold. You
yeah,
got to bring the show down because you can't hotshot everything. So they got to
mm,
bring it down, maintain it for a while, and then start building back up. AEW is just like they are. There is not a thing they're not throwing at the wall right now.
yeah.
So like they have nowhere to go.
Mm. Yeah, again, I'm not I see the ratings when I scroll through Twitter or whatever. I don't know anything about rights deals and all that kind of stuff like because I don't really
Yeah.
care about that. That's the out of ring stuff that's
Right.
really more interesting than the in ring stuff.
Yeah.
Nobody most people don't care about that. Just
The
make a
best thing
better in ring product.
Yeah, the best thing they could do would be just like focus on 20 people of their
Mhm.
3,000 wrestlers on the roster.
Yeah.
And if you want to break it up by show and do 20, 20, 20 on your different shows, fine, whatever.
Mm,
But like, there's no identity amongst the shows. You
yeah.
have no idea like who's going to be up and down. They have talent and people have gotten over at times, but then they're just not on TV.
Right.
Wardlow, Ricky Starks,
Yeah.
all those guys like Darby Allen and MJF are essentially bulletproof.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, it's just it's like
It's super
why bother
frustrating.
because they're going to be gone,
Yeah.
whether they're
It's
hurt.
super frustrating.
Yeah, yeah, whether they're
Yeah.
hurt because of the style of wrestling or
Mm.
they just you know they're
Hit by a bus.
yes, or they're not on somebody's clique, whatever. It's bad.
Yeah, it's bad, and I generally don't see it getting any better as long as Tony's still booking. Like it's
Yeah.
just not going to get any better. Like there needs to be somebody that has like creative oversight on this because again, it's if you accept the fact that you can deal with these dudes that don't weigh 200 pounds, that's fine, but just make better stories. Like
Mhm.
having a whole show essentially of cruiserweights, I could probably get behind that for the most part as long as the creative was okay.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
it's just not great. So speaking of not great and tying this all together, so we're talking about wrestling in 1991 today. We're gonna swing over here to 1999. Again, if you're on YouTube, it's graphic from Eric Bischoff's show. It's like it's WCW or it's AEW WCW in 1999. We were watching in 1999. Again, there was a phone call that happened between Brother Beavis and I. I'm like, hey, wrestling is on like TBS right now. Like, and Lex Luger just showed up like for
Yeah.
the first Nitro or something. And that started it back for us getting back in after this gap here that we're talking about. And we watched every freaking Monday night. Like, I,
Yeah.
I can't think of a Monday night that I missed. And if I did miss it, I'm sure I had it on my DVR. So yes, it did get bad. And then probably by 99, I was probably a little bit close to being out
Yeah,
fairly because this is either pre Russo or right at Russo or right before him, and the storylines didn't make any sense. And again, it wasn't finger poke of doom. It wasn't any of that kind of stuff. It was just it wasn't cool anymore.
yeah. This
Like it was
was,
cool.
if I remember, this was we had the two NWOs, most of
Yes.
whom were mid card Sunday Night Heroes.
Mm.
Um, Hall and Nash were checked out. I think Hall was probably gone.
Yeah,
Nash
rehabbing it up.
was checked out. They were bringing in, we had endured the Goldberg experience, which I
Yeah.
don't think did anything for either you or me.
Mm.
Uh, they were bringing in aging WCW or WWF veterans that
Hmm.
weren't contributing.
Yeah.
Uh, anybody like old school that we might have liked that came on the show, like a Chris Adams or somebody, would have, was immediately buried. So yeah, this was bad.
Yeah.
Also,
The essential beginning of the end.
mm,
And but they were still pulling like 5 million people a night,
yeah,
like on Monday still. They were getting crushed by WWF, but they were still pulling in all these people to still be able to watch a bad product. And I think that's where I am with AEW. Even though your numbers are shrinking, people are coming to watch a bad product. But what happens, or if it's happening now, what happens when it doesn't become cool anymore? Because this is what this was for me. Like
yeah,
wrestling, like it was cool, it was hot, everybody was watching it, we were watching it like it was like an event television.
yeah,
And I think AEW had a little bit of that when it started, but now that it's not really cool, the people that were kind of back in and they're like, I'm kind of lukewarm to it. There are so many other options of things for you to be able to watch, or you could just listen to 1,000
right,
podcasts, shit on it for hours, and and just not even worry about it. And I kind of feel that's where they are, taking out the fact of about WCW. I just think it's just not cool. Like
yeah,
it's not.
yeah. And I wake up religiously and look at a couple websites and follow it and stuff like that. But I spend more time doing that than watching anything. And I
Yes.
spend way more time listening to like Cornette
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes Busted Open, that sort of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. But
Yep. It's just you. And I think Cornette or somebody recently was just like, yeah, it's easy to be cool, or maybe it
yeah,
was somebody else. It's easier to be cool initially than it is to become cool later.
hmm,
Like once you're not cool anymore, like once
right,
you're not Fonzie in the leather jacket, then you are jumping the shark for wrestling. And I think that might be where they are. I don't know if you can recapture it. There's not
yeah,
somebody that they're going to sign from WWEF that's going to make a difference because they'll be stuck in the same booking. And that goes back to Mercedes Monet or whatever. Like as again, I only watched a few pay-per-views or whatever. I watched that match between her and what's the girl with the hair, Bianca Belair, like at WrestleMania a couple of years ago. And I'm shitting on her, and I'm a kind of a fan there. We're missing the name. I watched that match. She was great in that. And
hmm,
Bianca Belair, that was probably 2 or 3 years ago. She was even greener than she is now. And she got a great match out of that lady. So I think that she's a good wrestler, but her
yeah,
character just sucks over
yeah,
there. Or if you're not being properly produced, then it makes you can't hide the flaws that you might have as a wrestler or as somebody that can't talk. So I
right,
think that's part of it. And so now she's just not cool. She was
yeah.
cool. Now she's not. How'd you
I
get
mean,
that back?
I think the best thing they could do would be just strip all the gaga off, start having just matches with amongst a consistent set of people. Like, don't have 25-minute bangers.
Yeah.
Have 7 to 10 minute matches where somebody wins decisively, and it makes sense. There's not a afterbirth,
Hmm.
and just do that for a while and see like who's getting the reactions, and then start to work angles in for the top storylines, and just let the rest of the show just be matches, like
Yeah.
decent matches to get people over and have some semblance of consistency.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's just it ain't it ain't good. All right, y'all. This is us essentially also just avoiding talking about Halloween Havoc and Survivor Series.